So what I've been doing this week is I've been teaching what we call a meditation toolkit. In other words, just an arc of teachings about meditation. We started on Monday, we'll finish tomorrow. Most of them will be on YouTube, so if you haven't been able to come to the other ones, you can have a look at our London Buddhist Centre YouTube channel. We forgot on the first day, but anyway, and it wasn't so good that day, so you haven't missed too much, yeah. But you could catch up on those, yeah. And then tomorrow is the climax of our series. I don't know what that climax is going to be yet, but anyway, so we've got the last one tomorrow, yeah. So what I've been emphasising on this toolkit, and every time I do these toolkits, I kind of find myself wanting to emphasise different things, depending partly on what I see around me and depending on my own practice. So the main thing I've been emphasising on this toolkit is moving from everyday consciousness, which is a consciousness that's very dominated by what a Buddhist would call prapuncture, which is mental proliferation, inner chatter, planning, fantasizing, remembering, and so on. It's not really thinking. Some people say it's thinking. It's not really thinking. That's sort of too dignified a word. It's just that mental burbling, opinionating and so on that we do in our mind, commentating in our mind. Yeah. And very much of ordinary consciousness is dominated by that, isn't it? When you think of it, it's quite striking that so often we don't live strongly through the body, we don't live strongly through our feelings. We're often just caught in fantasy. Fantasy, remembering, forgetting, planning, thinking, yeah. Now that's very, very natural, and that the more complex your life is, the more you'll tend to get into that state of prapuncture. Because what prapuncture is trying to do, what this mental chatter is trying to do, is work out what's the best thing to do, what isn't the best thing to do, how to get as much pleasure and how to minimise pain. Yeah. So what that tendency of the mind to chatter is actually about trying to get control on your life, so you limit the degree of pain and you maximise the degree of pleasure. So you might already be thinking, okay, then I'll have lunch, and then I get to have that groovy coffee on the way back, and then I must do, It's that kind of thing, yeah? The difference now, I think, is that our lives are so complex, and especially technological, that that prapuncture is being more and more evoked in us, yeah? Not only do we have our mind chattering, we're spending a lot of time on YouTube. We're spending a lot of time on a screen. Recent research seems to be showing that many of us are spending more time looking into a screen than being asleep. Yeah? We don't know the actual consequences of that, but one of the things it does is it increases this level of mental noise. Yeah. So the first thing we're trying to do, and the main thing I've been emphasising on this toolkit, is how to step out of that into a richer, wholer consciousness, more unified consciousness that Buddhism calls samadhi. Yeah? And then, from a Buddhist perspective, you then use samadhi to gain an insight into the nature of reality itself. Yeah? That's the Buddhist point of samadhi. So you've got a healthy, unified mind, and you use that healthy, unified mind to fruitfully ask those larger questions of life. What's the nature of happiness? What's the nature of suffering? How do I live well, given the inevitability of death? All those big questions that you might have asked as a child and sometimes never ask again. What's the nature of meaning? All those sort of things. How do I live a truly valuable life? How do I make the most of life? Now, if you ask those kind of questions in everyday consciousness, you don't get very far with it, because you're not trying to think your way to reality, you're trying to have an instinct for it. So you need, first of all, to cultivate a much richer, much more unified mind. Yeah? So that's what we've been exploring. I might get onto a little bit of prajna tomorrow, I don't know yet. It depends how I feel. I pretty much can do as I fancy, which is nice. So mostly we've been exploring how do we move into samadhi. So I've been stressing three things, haven't I? Those of you who've been here before. So the first thing is we need to take full responsibility for our mind, and I've been emphasising that a lot on this seminar. We need to take ownership of our mind, which is really taking ownership of our life. So easy to think that our states of mind are due to somebody else, or due to our boss, or due to the state, or due to, I don't know, some inequality in a system or something. What Buddhism isn't really interested in any of that. It's trying to say, okay, but what is your state of mind, and how are you going to work with it? Not so interested in why you've got that state of mind, I don't think. It's more saying, okay, what state of mind are you in now, and how are you going to, if it's a negative state of mind, move towards a positive state of mind. If it's a distracted state of mind, move towards more of a unified state of mind. How are you going to move into a state of mind that's in your own best interest and in other people's best interest? Nobody wakes up in the morning thinking, what I want to do today is resent people, wish I was living in Marbella, wish I was younger, etc., wish I had more money. Things like that, all they can ever do is make you unhappy. If you want to become unhappy, it's quite clear how you do it. You just wish for something that you can't have. Yeah, you can wish to be younger, and that will make you unhappy straight away, because it won't ever happen. Etc. Yeah. So the first thing we need to do in meditation, what meditation is about, is taking full ownership of our mind. That whatever state of mind I'm in now, it's my state of mind. No one's to blame for it, actually, interestingly, including oneself. I think the whole idea of blame is quite alien to Buddhism. The question is what state of mind I am, can I feel it, and how do I work with it? Yeah? How do I move that state of mind? And then I've been saying, the next thing we need to do is not take our state of mind personally. I was very pleased with this contrast. So whatever state of mind we're in, whether it's, if we're in a very negative state of mind, or a very ebullient state of mind, or for a lot of people I've been noticing a very sleepy state of mind. You can tell because some of you have been doing that. Yeah. One day I was doing that, but nobody noticed. I'm allowed to open my eyes, you're not. You're trying not to take it personally. Being tired, being angry, being lustful, being bored, being excitable and rather full of yourself, whatever it is, those are the more negative ones, they don't say anything importantly about who you are. They're just the surface of your mind. The trouble is that we get stuck on the surface of our mind. Yeah, our mind is so much deeper than we could possibly imagine. This figure in the shrine is a figure for how deep our mind actually is. Yeah, it's saying that our mind includes that. This kind of majesty, this kind of goldness, this kind of calm, this kind of radiance. Yeah, that shape behind the figure of the Buddha is a radiance that he has around his head and so on. And you know that when you meet someone in a very good state, they do sort of have a radiance to them. Sometimes when you meet them, they sort of shine slightly. When you're in a very positive state, there is something clearly shining about someone. They become less. They seem to have more weight to them, more gravitas. I mean, one of the things you could say about samadhi is it's the road to gravitas, to having more weight to you. Sometimes you meet people, they seem to have no weight to them, and I mean that in a pejorative sense. So samadhi is about cultivating that kind of weightedness, grown-upness, but it also has this sort of shine to it. Yeah? The trouble is so often we just get stuck in irritability, anxiety, tiredness, slightly feeling low, self-criticism, criticism of others. We get so easily stuck on the sort of fly paper of the top of our mind. Yeah. So, first of all, we need to really recognise that and feel that, and then we need to not take it personally. And then I've been saying, don't get caught up in that perspective. So, if we're not careful, it's not that we've got a state of mind called anxiety. We just act out of it unconsciously. We've not got a state of mind and irritability. We just think that people are irritating us. Do you see what I mean? People can even say, oh no, I'm just really chilled out and calm, but people keep irritating me. You see, that's what I mean by not taking ownership. As soon as you think it's people who are irritating me, then you can't change yourself because it's them that are doing it. As soon as you think, I am irritated, okay, what does that feel like? How am I going to feel into it, fruitfully start to change it? And that's not a science, that's an art. And that's going to take a lot of learning. So even though this toolkit comes to an end tomorrow, don't be thinking that you've learned very much. Even if you've managed to do all 6 tomorrow, I should be really giving out badges for some of you tomorrow. Some of you have been coming to quite a few. I've already seen one that, all things being well, she'll get a badge tomorrow. Unfortunately, we haven't got badges. But don't think that that's you learnt it. There's everything yet to learn. Yeah. So keep coming along. If you can, come to an evening class where you get more time. Absolutely, without doubt, go on retreat. If you can't get on the Easter retreat, because it's already almost booked up, have a look already at the summer retreat. I'm leading a men's retreat, there's a women's retreat, there's a open retreat. Go on a weekend retreat. This Saturday there's going to be a kind of exploration discussion from 10 till 12:30 about what Buddhism's really trying to get at. Come to that. Just keep on working with your mind, in other words. Yeah? So yesterday I was then saying the next way, once we've done those things, once we've taken ownership of our life, not taken our mental states personally, in other words, not got worried by them, it doesn't mean anything very substantially about us. The problem with it is we get stuck in it. It's not saying anything about who we really are. I'm a hateful person, I'm a lusting person, I'm an ambitious person. That's all that sort of thing that we get stuck in. I'm a this sort of person. It's pretty trivial, really. It doesn't really mean very much. The main serious thing about it is that we get stuck at that level. Let's not do that, yeah? So then you don't take it personally, you try not to get caught up in that perspective, yeah? Very easy to get caught up in that perspective, but we try, in Samadhi, we're trying to work beyond that. The next thing we need to do to try to enter Samadhi is look at how we're grasping our experience. So, usually what's happening, well, actually not usually, inevitably, if we're not in Samadhi and meditation, it's because we're caught up in prapuncture, in mental proliferation, and that will be mirrored by a holding on, a grasping, a clinging, like a locked upness. Yeah? So the Buddhist word is grasping usually, which I was thinking the other day, it's actually when you think of the metaphor of to grasp, it's actually perfectly clear. So you're grasping something because you want it. At the same time as you're doing that, you're showing a fist to push things away. Yeah, that's what Buddhism means by grasping. That you want this, but you also don't want that. Yeah, I want lunch afterwards, but I don't want to feel uncomfortable now. Yeah, that's what. So grasping is like that, and it's always tight. It's tight in your mind. It's tight in your emotions, and it's tight in your body. So the simplest thing to do to start to work into Samadhi is look at where you're holding on, where you're grasping. The simplest place to look is your body. Yeah? I won't say much more about that today because I talked about that mostly yesterday. What I want us to do in this meditation again is really try to look for where am I grasping on into my experience. Some of you I know were doing yoga before the class, and that's a really good way of preparing because it means that your body, at least crudely, is less tense. But our grasping onto our body can be like a crude tension. I remember once when I had problems with my neck when I was young, and I went to the doctor, And he said, do you tend to be an anxious person? And I was going, no, I don't think so. My shoulders were up around my ears habitually, but I just didn't notice it had anything to do with being anxious, and that's why I had all these neck problems. So just look in the body where you're habitually holding on, habitually tightening. Now the tricky thing about that is because it's habitual and automatic, it's difficult to tell. Interestingly, even with, I've got a terrible posture, I'm afraid, and my adolescent stoop is carrying on well into middle age and will take me into old age. But I've seen some people who've got these gorgeous yoga postures, usually clad in some kind of lycra, of some description. But when I talk to them about it, they actually feel very tense. So you can actually still have the sort of the yoga posture everybody wants, but still be very tense. So you're looking for subtleties of holding in your body, which is really to do with your mind, yeah? So really we're going to do the mindfulness of breathing again. Probably just do the third stage, I think, today. I'm cutting it down every day, we just do less and less. So we'll just do the third stage, but keep on tracking through your body and where am I grasping onto it. The key areas are your face, your shoulders, your belly and your thighs. As soon as you get stressed, as soon as you get anxious, you tighten your face and your jaw. Sometimes our jaw is so habitually tight, it's very, very difficult to release the jaw. You tense up your shoulders, you tense up your belly and you'll tense up your thighs. And you're doing those things to sort of have you braced to move. Yeah? So you're trying to comb your way through that. My partner's got two daughters, one of them's mixed race, and she's got mixed race hair, and it's very difficult to comb. And I sometimes try and comb her hair. And first of all, you have to start with my fingers, otherwise it's just too. I'm not very good at it actually, but because she always complains that I take too long. But anyway, I had to comb it with my fingers, and then I get a big comb, a brush, and then we go down a bit, and then by which time she's saying, "You take much longer than Mummy," which is true, And actually, her mother's teaching next door. So it's a bit like that with your body. You just keep combing through your body. Use your breath even to sort of comb through your body. So you're looking to soothe and comb through all those knots in your body. And they're knots not primarily to do with muscles, they're to do with your mind. It's not that, you can feel like quite physically relaxed, but if you're more subtle, you notice that you're holding your body in your mind. So you just comb through your body, yeah? You keep doing that. Keep combing through the body, soothing the body out, yeah? The more you do that, the more you'll start to move into samadhi, yeah? As soon as you grasp, as soon as you do that, you're stopping yourself moving from ordinary consciousness into this much more pleasurable, unified consciousness that we're trying to get into, yeah? As you do that, and the area I want to particularly touch on just for the last few minutes now, is as you do that, you'll start to notice that your experience is more pleasurable. Yeah? So sometimes the body is really unpleasant. I have quite a lot of physical discomfort in meditation. I definitely know how to make that worse, and I can tell you that now. All you need to do is react to that in your mind, get irritated with your discomfort, feel averse to your discomfort, your physical discomfort, and that will make it worse straight away, yeah? So the practice, if you've got physical discomfort, is to treat it like comfort, strangely. So you think, oh, my shoulders are sore. So instead of thinking, I want to get away from that, you say, let me just relax into that more then. Let me feel that more. Or my belly's tight. And instead of wanting to get away from that, you say, let me just feel that more, yeah? So when I say pleasure in meditation, I'm importantly saying not trying to get away from discomfort, because that creates more discomfort. So treat any discomfort in your body, strangely, as comfort, as if it's something you want to engage with. Otherwise, you'll be engaging with discomfort as if it's a threat. And as soon as you get set up that threat system in your mind is saying, I've now got a problem, and it'll make it worse, yeah? So you literally imagine that your discomfort if you did but know it, is comfort. And you need to think, let me just investigate that, let me go into it. Yeah. Now, as you start to soothe out the body, comb through the body with your mind and your breath, you might then start to notice that there's just a bit more pleasure. Yeah? Now, pleasure is really, really important in meditation. As soon as you've got pleasure, especially in meditation, guess what? You want to meditate. You think, this is quite nice. This. It's gone from being a sort of goodly but rather tedious chore. I've been teaching Alex, one of my oldest partner's daughter, trying to teach her to meditate, and she just finds it so boring. We've managed to do 3 breaths if we're lucky. So we're trying to go from, meditation being a sort of good for me chore into something we intrinsically want to do. Now, the way to do that is to find it pleasurable. So what we need to do as we settle in, start to keep an eye out for pleasure. Yeah? So don't grab at pleasure, because then pleasure goes. As soon as you try and have a pleasure, it's gone straight away. Yeah? As soon as you try and get rid of a pain, you've made it worse. Yeah? But as we go through the meditation today, just see if you can keep an eye out, as it were, almost like the corner of your eye, for any pleasure, especially physical pleasure. And it can be very, very mild. It might just be just the comfort of not doing anything, that you're not on your phone just now, that you're not late for an appointment just now, there's nothing to do just now. For me, just sometimes just the comfort of sitting on the floor, the warmth of your clothes. Look for subtle pleasure. Might not be very strong, yeah? Very, very important. And then see if you can, it takes a bit of an art, see if you can include that subtle pleasure in your experience more. So you can still be feeling your breath, you're still feeling your body, and you're, as it were, tilting your awareness towards the pleasure. You're not trying to go over there and grab it, and you're definitely not trying to tilt it away from the discomfort. You're just tilting your awareness to include any pleasurable sensation a bit more. Now, eventually in meditation, particularly in samadhi, you can be filled with pleasure. In fact, that's effectively, in terms of samadhi, what you're looking for. The trouble is, as soon as you look for it, it goes. Yeah? As soon as you think, filled with pleasure, that sounds good. Right then, here we go. And you won't find it, I can tell you. So don't even try that. What you do is you're just very subtly combing through the body, calming and soothing the body, consciously welcoming any discomfort, treating it like comfort, and just subtly noticing any pleasure, leaning slightly, as it were, metaphorically, into any pleasure, trying to cherish it a bit. If you start to feel definite pleasure, like warmth or comfort, just see if you can just, it's like, I don't know how to explain it really, but it's like you kind of, oh, that's nice. You just sort of literally almost sit back into it a bit more. You just, oh, nice, that's nice. Yeah. Which is different from, get that, yeah? You just sort of sit into it a bit more and let it be there and see if you can allow it to grow a bit. Yeah? It's a bit like blowing on embers of a fire. You don't blow and then just blow it out. You just subtly see if you can you have to be experimental, like I was talking yesterday. You're trying to let any pleasure subtly sort of grow a bit, especially physical pleasure. Just the pleasure, a simple pleasure of sitting here, feeling your breath. Breath, remember, is a sensual experience. It's not a head experience. You feel your breath. You start to calm down a bit. As soon as you calm down a bit, that's a bit of pleasure. So you just subtly see if you can let that grow. Yeah? The more that grows, the more you'll enter samadhi. Yeah? So let's have a go at that now.